We didn't fall in love once. We kept choosing each other. Every ordinary day. Thomas, true love doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to stay. Mary. This isn't a fairy tale. There were no castles, no perfect sunsets. Just two people who chose to stay. Through 60 winters and 60 springs. Through the noise, the silence, the everyday. This is the story of Mary and Thomas, and of a love that didn't need to be loud to last forever. Title: 60 Years, One Love, The Marriage That Never Broke. They met under a rainy sky in 1965. He offered her half an umbrella. She offered him her smile. That's how their story began. They didn't fall in love like in the movies. No grand declarations, no dramatic twists. Just two hands that reached out and never let go. Their first date was over soup and soft jazz in a tiny cafe they could barely afford. He asked about her dreams. She asked about his fears. And from that night onward, it wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. Over time, their love became less about the new and more about the known. The way she folded his shirts, the way he remembered how she took her tea. Their love was a pattern, like a favorite song replayed, but never boring. The foundation: respect before romance. Mary and Thomas were married for 60 years. When asked their secret, Mary laughed. We were too stubborn to give up, and too kind to hurt each other. Thomas said, I married my best friend. The rest was easy. But it wasn't always easy. They had fights. They had seasons of silence. They faced illness, loss, bankruptcy, and still they stayed. They built a home with mismatched furniture and consistent grace. When they had nothing, they had each other. And when they had more, they shared it. Their love grew not in grand leaps, but in quiet understanding, in apology notes left on pillows, in holding hands at funerals, in late-night laughter after long, hard days. Lesson 1. Love is a daily choice. Some mornings, Mary confessed, I didn't feel in love, but I still made him coffee. Love isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a decision you make, even when it's hard. They chose each other in small gestures, a kiss on the forehead, bait kept warm, a hand squeezed in the dark. They understood that the grandest expressions of love are often the quietest ones. There were days filled with tears and others with triumph, but they never let the hard days erase the good ones. Every day was a new yes. Lesson 2. Speak less, listen more. Thomas used to come home tired and quiet. Mary wouldn't complain. She'd just sit beside him. Listening isn't always about words, she said. Sometimes it's about giving someone space to be silent with you. They learned most arguments weren't about being right. They were about being heard. And sometimes simply being there was enough to start healing. In a world where noise often replaces connection, they made room for silence, and in doing so, created space for peace. Lesson 3. Never stop saying thank you. Even in their 80s, Thomas thanked Mary for dinner, every night. Gratitude is glue, he'd say. The moment you stop appreciating each other, you start drifting. She, in return, never forgot to thank him for the little things, fixing the lamp, feeding the dog, checking the locks. Appreciation became their love language. They never took each other for granted. Even routine became sacred because it was shared. Lesson 4. Grow, but grow together. Over the decades, they changed, but they never outgrew each other. They grew toward each other. Don't be afraid of change, Mary said. Be afraid of standing still while your partner evolves. He read philosophy. She took up painting. They didn't always understand each other's passions, but they always made room for them. Their marriage wasn't a cage, it was a garden, and they watered each other's growth with encouragement. Lesson 5. End each day with peace. For 60 years, they never went to bed angry. Even if we were tired or frustrated, Thomas said, we said, good night. I love you. It wasn't a fix, it was a bridge. They chose to fall asleep with soft hearts, believing that love must rest to grow strong. In every ending, they found a new beginning, because peace wasn't the reward, it was the practice. The final chapter. In their last year, Thomas could no longer hold a spoon. Mary fed him slowly, with hands that once held their children. This is love too, she whispered, to care when it's no longer convenient. When Thomas passed, he left a note in his drawer. 60 years, 21,900 days. Not every day was easy, but every day was worth it. She wore his wedding band on a chain. She still made 2 cups of tea. Because love, once real, never truly leaves. What we can learn. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was real. They taught us that slow-burning love lights the longest path. Don't just ask, do they make me happy today? Ask, can I still pour them coffee when I'm tired? Can I grow beside them? Can I say good night even when I'm upset? Love isn't a firework, it's a candle, lit, sheltered, and tended every day. Life after love, when one heart keeps beating for two. Mary didn't crumble after Thomas passed. She made 2 cups of tea every morning. She hummed their song. He may be gone, she said, but love doesn't need a body to live on. She kept gardening. She reread their letters, and every year on their anniversary she wore the same dress she married him in just for a moment to feel close. And when she walked through the garden, she whispered aloud as if he were walking beside her. Lesson 6. Love after loss is still love. Grief isn't always sobs. Sometimes it's pouring tea for someone who isn't there, and yet still smiling. Because when someone loves you that deeply, the echo stays, in the stillness of a familiar chair, in the smell of old books, in the warm weight of memory that no time can erase. A love that taught generations. Their grandchildren asked, "How did you stay in love?" Mary, we didn't stay in love. We kept choosing it. She wrote a book titled Choose Each Other Again. Inside were notes like, happiness is homemade, forgiveness is the softest pillow, hold hands when you're mad, tell your partner what you're proud of before the world does, never leave without saying I love you, celebrate small things, they become the big things. The final pages, her words to us. On her 90th birthday, Mary said, love isn't perfect, it's not fireworks, it's folding their shirt when they're tired, it's laughing at the same old joke for the 40th year. It's saying, I choose you still, always. They were buried side by side. On their gravestone, together they grew love like a garden, quietly, patiently, endlessly. When the story became mine, I stopped searching for fireworks. I started falling in love with consistency. I stopped expecting love to fix me. I started learning how to build love that heals. Now I ask, can we water this every day even when we don't feel like it? Because forever isn't a promise, it's a practice. I tell their story because I hope someone will tell mine one day. And not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Because love is not the destination, it's the way we walk. Passing it on. Someday I hope to be old. I hope someone asks, how did you make it work for so long? And I'll say, we made love a habit. We chose each other on the boring days. We turned ordinary into sacred. And I'll think of Mary and Thomas, of umbrellas shared in the rain, of soup, soft jazz, and Sunday morning tea. And I will smile, not because I had the perfect love story, but because I lived one worth remembering. This isn't just a love story, it's a reminder. Love is still alive in gardens, wrinkled hands, thank you notes, and quiet silences. So today, choose someone. Show up. Say what matters. Love in the way that lasts, even when it's quiet. Especially when it's quiet. Final blessing, may your love be quiet but steady, ordinary but enduring, imperfect but holy, and when someone asks how you made it, smile and say, we just never stopped showing up. Legacy in the quietest moments. Years after Mary passed, her home became a sanctuary for memory. Her children kept it just the way it was. Teacups still hung neatly above the sink, a blanket still folded just so at the end of the couch, and her garden still blooming. Neighbors said the house seemed to breathe peace, as if love had soaked into the walls, into the floorboards, into the very soil beneath the rose bushes. One of her granddaughters, now grown with a family of her own, would visit every spring. She'd sit under the same tree where Mary and Thomas once had tea. Her son would run through the grass, and she'd smile, knowing that he was playing in the shadow of a love that lasted lifetimes. Echoes of a promise. Mary and Thomas never sought legacy. They didn't post pictures, didn't chase approval. They lived in full color, but off stage, and somehow that made their story louder. What they left behind wasn't a monument. It was a mirror, one that reflects what we all still crave, a hand to hold through illness, a voice that calms, not conquers, a quiet I'm here when the world feels heavy. They showed that love isn't defined by the peaks, but by how we hold each other through the valleys. What will your love leave behind? Maybe it won't be 60 years. Maybe it won't be perfect. But maybe, if you choose it again tomorrow and the next day and the next, it will be enough. Maybe your love will live on in the way someone else chooses to stay. in the way a child learns to forgive, in the quiet comfort of someone feeling safe for the first time. Because love, when real, doesn't die. It just changes hands. End note for you who believes. If you're still hoping, still searching, still trying, this story is for you. Not to show you what's impossible, but to remind you that love like this isn't a fantasy. It's a choice, a rhythm, a daily act of faith. And maybe someday someone will tell your story and call it love too.